Hey, it's Shane from GotRom.com. This video is about 4 exercises and their progressions to strengthen your hips. Stay tuned. The truth is, everyone wants to build powerful, strong hips, whether it's for sports or for aesthetics, or even to prevent injuries or recuperate from injuries. Everyone wants to build strong hips. But the number one problem that most people face, especially beginners, is which exercise do I choose? Is it this one, or that one, or the other one? But the truth is, you're not even deciding between 4 exercises. You're often deciding between hundreds of exercises that you find on Google and YouTube. So to make it easy, let's break it down into 4 easy movements. First, let's start with the squat progressions. Squatting is a basic and important position and movement in all sports, whether you're playing basketball, tennis, playing volleyball. Every sport requires a squatting type position. For beginners, I like to start with a bodyweight squat progression with their hands out front. From the front view, you can see that my feet are flat, my core is braced, my hips are open. Next progression after a bodyweight squat would be a goblet squat with a dumbbell held out front. Notice that my chin is tucked as well. The cues that I often give people are chin tucked, ribs down, abs braced, hips open, feet flat, moving from top to bottom. And you can then progress it to jumping squats where you're pushing the ground away and landing with flat feet, pushing with flat feet, landing with flat feet. This is important because when you move on to plyometrics or other jumping activities in your sport, or even if you're just, jumping around in life, getting over a fence, or moving in some kind of squat-like way, you need to have practiced this pattern. The next progression would be a front squat. This comes after the goblet squat because it's a little bit of a harder position. The final progression for most people is going to be a back squat. It's the most difficult squatting movement to maintain a good torso position, open hips, flat feet. For me, it took many years to develop a deep and comfortable squat, but I put all of the knowledge that I gained going from stiff guy to flexible guy in my 45-day deep squats program. The next progression that we're going to look at is the lunge progression. The lunge progression is super important because all sports are played on one leg. So if you're a sprinter, or if you are playing ultimate frisbee and going into a deep throw, or tennis, lunging for a ball, it's all the lunge position, so we've got to train it. The first progression I like to start people with is a split squat, where both feet are planted, you're on your back big toe, your front foot is flat, and you're just sinking straight down and straight up between your 2 legs. The next progression would be a reverse lunge. Now there's more instability in the system. The progression after that would be a forward lunge. Now there's a little more stress on the knee. In all of these movements, you can add dumbbells or barbells as a later progression. Do the split squats, or the reverse lunge, or the forward lunge. If you want to see it from the front, you should notice that the knee is not tracking too far to the outside or too far to the inside, whether you're doing any of the lunging or split squat variations. The next progression we're going to move into is the deadlift progressions, or the deadlift variations. Similar to the squat, the deadlift is a very sport-specific position. You'll find this shape in many positions in sport, from the athletic ready stance to the getting ready to do a broad jump, to the getting ready to do a vertical leap kind of position. These are all the deadlifting shapes. To progress for beginners, I have them just learn how to hinge at the hips with a flat back. And then I'll have them put their hands behind their head, which makes it a little bit harder. Notice the back is staying flat, the feet are staying flat, and I'm not going any lower than I can without rounding my back. For true beginners, these progressions with their hands and the arms and progressing to straighter and straighter legs can be enough for a few weeks to start. But eventually, when you want to add a little more challenge, you can switch to 1-leg deadlift variations. This is a single leg Romanian deadlift, or a 1-leg deadlift. From the front, the key points are core is engaged, spine is in neutral, and the knee is not collapsing in, and the feet are straight. Like any other progression, you add weights at some point, but the biomechanics should remain exactly the same. In other words, your technique should remain exactly the same. If you watch someone do it with zero weight or with extremely heavy weight, it should look exactly the same. The next progression would be a kettlebell deadlift with 2 legs. Now you're going to start adding more load. I like to first work on just the body weight progressions and then a little bit of single leg stuff for balance. Eventually the kettlebell, followed by a trap bar deadlift. This is where you start to get into much more serious loading, where you can really start to develop some strength. And the ultimate progression being a straight leg deadlift, either with a conventional stance or with a sumo stance. Little warning, these last progressions, the trap bar and the straight bar deadlifts and things like that, are higher risk and higher reward. You can hurt your back doing these things. That's why it's important to know how to fix your back if it gets tweaked, which I have in my 45-day athlete's back program. The next progression is the lateral lunge progressions. This is important because we don't move linearly, straight forward and backwards in sport, we move laterally. Whether you're cutting on the soccer pitch or diving for a ball in volleyball or cutting in basketball, every sport involves lateral agility. This here's the great Michael Jordan for your viewing pleasure, and the also great Allen Iverson. The ability to change direction and have side-to-side strength and agility is what we're starting to train here. Starting with both feet flat, this is just a lateral squat progression with just body weight. Very stable, very light. Followed by dynamic lateral lunges, where now I'm stepping out to the side. I like to put the hands out front to help counterbalance. The core is always engaged when we're moving. Finally progressing to Haydns or speed skater squats, where you're jumping from side to side, producing a little bit more force with a little more unstable environment. When you decide to add load, you can add that dumbbell or plate in the goblet squat kind of position. This makes it more intense on the hips. Or if you want to progress the range of motion instead, you could sink into these Cossack squats with your feet flat or your toes pointed up to the sky, whichever version you want to play with. This will challenge your range of motion in your hips more than your strength, although it does also require quite a decent amount of strength. So these Haydns and these lateral movements are something that any athlete who wants to have not just strong or big hips or large glutes, but wants athletic hips should practice these lateral switches that you're seeing here, or the Haydns that I showed you in the previous video. This develops your muscles in a very sport-specific way. It is a little more of a chaotic environment, so we save it for last. So in summary, the 4 best exercises for hip strength for athletes: squat variations, lunge variations, deadlift variations, and lateral lunge variations. Hope that video was helpful. See you in the next one.